hi, and welcome. If you are new here, my name is Sarah, and this is Wicked Reading. So first, before I get started, I just want to say thank you so much for everybody's super kind and super sweet and super understanding and supportive comments on the last video. If you guys missed it, I did post a quick little life update / what's gonna happen with the future of this channel video, and I really just can't express how amazing you guys made me feel. It's very intimidating and scary to be so vulnerable online, and especially for me to put myself out there so much, because before YouTube I barely ever posted on even social media, and I was very just private, and I've opened myself up a lot in the last couple years, and to have such an amazing response and to feel so supported, and just I really can't say enough how much I appreciate you guys and how thankful I am for this community and this space here on YouTube. But anyways, so sappy stuff out of the way. I have a book haul. I haven't done a book haul in a little bit. It's been probably going on 4 months now. So I have a lot of books. I counted them. I have 48 books. Now, I will say with my last book haul, I think I was just over 50, and I did say that I wanted to slow down my book buying, and I did. Despite that number, this whole stack right here is actually all books that were gifted to me, which is amazing, and I so appreciate everybody that has ever gifted me anything, because you really do not need to do that. But all of this stack is actually books gifted to me. The rest of the books I did buy myself, so my personal book buying did go down a little bit. But that being said, I am planning on not buying any books even more so, because again, with the update from the last video, I'm not gonna have as much time. So my whole 2025 goal is to read my physical TBR. I do have a couple of books here and there that I plan on pre-ordering because they're part of series that I'm currently reading, or super anticipated releases for me, but very few so far. I only have my sights set on like maybe 3 books for 2025 so far. So yeah, 2025 is gonna be the year of reading my physical TBR. So in order to like fully know what I'm getting myself into, I had to do my final book haul of 2024. I do have another stack sitting in front of me too. So I did mostly separate by genre. This is all my horror stack in front of me. This is special editions. This is a mix of fantasy, romance, and lit fic. These are all technically not split up by genre because I wanted to keep my gifted books all together. But yeah, so they're kind of split up, kind of not. But if you're new here, I read a lot of horror, fantasy romance. So that's pretty much what all these books are. There's a couple of lit fic. There's actually even a classic in here, which is different for me. And I do have a couple of romance that were gifted to me as well. So pretty much that is the majority of what these books are gonna be. Last thing, and then we'll get into it, I promise. Just as a preface, I'm not going to be giving a full synopsis of all of these books. I will be giving brief synopsises of what I believe them to be about, which may or may not actually be correct, and pretty much the reason and the keywords why I personally wanted them in my collection. So let's get into it. So I'm gonna start with this stack in front of me since it's just the most convenient. I'm gonna start with this portion of the stack, which is all horror books, but these are horror books that I received specifically in Nightworms packages. So if you don't know what Nightworms is, it is a horror subscription service. You get 2 books a month. So that is where all these books came from. So the first one that I have on the very top is Coup de Grace by Sophia Ajram, I want to say. This is a very short novella, and this one sounds really interesting, and I'm super curious about this one. Pretty much we follow a main character who is kind of stuck in this seemingly never-ending subway system or train system of some sort, and I think it kind of devolves into a psychological claustrophobic type of horror, and I think it leans a little bit into literary horror. The author of this was actually the editor for Bury Your Gaze by Chuck Tingle, which was a very popular 2024 release. So I'm really excited to check this one out. In that same package, I got This Cursed House by Del Sandine. I believe that this is like a Southern Gothic haunted house story. I know it's at least Southern Gothic. I'm kind of just assuming it's haunted house if I'm being honest. It says our main character abandons her life in 1960 Chicago for a position with mysterious family in New Orleans, only to discover the dark truth. They're under a curse and they think she can break it. Oh, interesting. I wonder if it's kind of like Skeleton Key vibes. You know that movie, Skeleton Key? We'll see, but I think it ties in a lot of racial themes, so I'm super excited to check this one out. Then I have After the People, wait, what? After the People, what is this title? After the People Lights Have Gone Off. After the People Lights Have Gone Off. Interesting. Okay. This is a short story collection by Stephen Graham Jones. It's a collection of his works. I think these are all like not new stories for him. They're like previous works. But I think a lot of Stephen Graham Jones' older works are starting to get republished. And I think that this is like a bind up of some of his previously published short stories. So I don't really know what to expect at all about this. I don't know if there's a theme with these stories or what, but I personally really enjoy Stephen Graham Jones. His writing is very hit or miss with people. Even with me, honestly, sometimes his writing is a little bit too much. It's a little bit hard to follow, but sometimes I love it. So I'm curious to check this one out. There's a blurb on the back and it says, the kind of collection that lodges in your brain like a malignant grain of evil dream. So there you have it. In that same package, we also got The Queen by Nick Cutter. This is a new release for Nick Cutter. And honestly, the synopsis of it doesn't sound very interesting, but I think that there's a lot more to this story than what the synopsis is. The synopsis pretty much talks about how there's these two girls that are friends and one of the girls goes missing, and then the other girl ends up seeing an iPhone in front of her home. It like gets delivered to her door or something, and her missing friend is like messaging her through that. And I don't know, I think that there's a lot more to the story than what the synopsis gives, and I think that there's some bug stuff going on. And I've read from Nick Cutter before, so I expect a lot of body horror, a lot of intense, very descriptive scenes that are either nasty or gory or something in that realm. I will say my copy's pretty beat up. Like my dust jacket is all sorts of janky, all sorts of bent, but it's fine. I do really like this cover. This actually has a different texture to it to feel a little bit more like a true terror in a paperback. But yeah, I'm mostly interested in this because I really enjoy Nick Cutter as an author and his writing in general, but we'll see if the story does it for me, because he has and has not had successful stories for me. Then I got Crypt of the Moon Spider by Nathan Ballingrud. So this is also a very short little story, under 100 pages, and it sounds bizarre. It says a dark and dreamy tale of horror, corruption, and identity. It talks about a cave beneath the dense forest and streams on the surface of the moon. A gargantuan spider once lived. Its silk granted its first worshippers immense faculties of power and awe. It's now 1923 and Veronica Brinkley is touching down on the moon for her intake at the Barrowfield Home for Treatment of the Melancholy. And then it like goes on to talk about very specific parts of the brain, like the amygdala, the hippocampus, stuff like that, the prefrontal cortex. So this sounds very bizarre. It sounds so weird. I don't know if it's kind of like cosmic in a way or what. I have no idea what to expect from this. I have seen really good reviews of it so far, and this is, I want to say, going to be a series. Oh, it's going to be a trilogy. It says book 1 of the Lunar Gothic trilogy. And I do believe that the second one already came out, and I think that the third one is already slated to come out. So you won't have to wait long to have the complete trilogy. I might wait until the other two come out before I at least start this one, just because they're so short. So if I really enjoy it, I will probably want to read the next two back to back. So I'll have to look into when the third one comes out, but I'm very intrigued by this. It sounds so weird and very unique. And then the last one from my Nightworm stack is Through the Midnight Door by Katrina Monroe. I'm intrigued by this. I've read from Katrina Monroe before, and I gave the story like a 3 or 3.5 star. I enjoyed it. I wasn't blown away by it. But the premise of this sounds super interesting to me. It pretty much has to do with 3 sisters, I believe, who go into an abandoned house, and they all end up getting separated in the house and locked into different rooms, and stuff goes down in those rooms, and then they run away from the house, and then years and years later, one of the sisters ends up offing herself, and the 2 other sisters decide to go back to kind of figure out and put together what even happened to them, because I think that they ended up suppressing a lot of whatever happened in this building. So I don't know, the premise of that sounds super intriguing. I really enjoy stories that explore sister relationships, even friendships. Woman relationships in general is something that I really enjoy. Mother-daughter, friendships, sisters. I love when women relationships are explored, so I'm really curious about this one. Okay, let's go into this other half of the stack, which is just kind of general horror. So first is one that I did already read, and that is Brainworms by Alison Rumfitt. This is a story that follows a transgender woman who then gets in a relationship with a non-binary person, and kind of like their toxic relationship in a way. It's hard to explain. The non-binary person has a very gross and interesting fetish. So we'll just leave it at that. There's a lot of gross stuff in this book. This is one of the nastiest books I've ever read, but the themes of this book are so stunning. So like, I can't necessarily say I enjoyed reading this book, but I got a lot out of this book. Alison Rumfitt is a transgender woman, so she puts a lot of themes surrounding transphobia, surrounding trans rights into her stories. And I really, really appreciate the commentary as well as the writing style. She definitely experiments with different formatting styles, with different narrative styles, which you will get in a single book. And I really enjoy it because it just creates such a dynamic and interesting reading experience, because you just don't know what you're gonna get in each chapter. I will say her writing does get a little bit dense for me at some points. Like, she has a lot of metaphors that she plays with, and I definitely don't understand them all, but it's just really such a unique approach to telling a story. And the themes in her books are really important, but this is a very, very gross book that I would say is like kind of extreme. Next is one that I'm so excited to read, and that is Rest Stop by Nat Cassidy. This is a novella. I love Nat Cassidy. I love his writing. I love his stories. And I don't know too much about this other than I think we follow our main character who goes to, like, I don't know, a gas station rest stop, and just shit hits the fan somehow. I don't know. There's blood on the cover. That's all I'm going in with, is pretty much the title of this book and the cover of this book. So I'm really excited to read this. There are some blurbs on the back, and it says Nat Cassidy at his most unhinged. Love that. An absurdist carnival, a suffocating funhouse. Gory, witty, and terrifying, left me literally gasping. So I am so curious about this. I can't wait to get into it. I've somewhat avoided reviews because I don't want to know anything more than I think I already do about this story, but I have at least seen really, really great reviews, people loving this story, saying it's their favorite Nat Cassidy ever. So I'm so excited to read this one. Next, I picked up a copy of Among the Living by Tim Lebbon. I'm not totally sure how to say his last name. This has to do with pretty much I want to say a parasite, but I'm not totally sure if I'm being honest. Some sort of parasite or bacteria or microbe of some sort that pretty much gets defrosted in the Arctic. It's been like long frozen over in the Arctic, but there's some researchers that go out there, find it, and I think from there it just kind of unleashes it and all hell breaks loose. I really wanted to have a winter feel horror. So I picked this one up since it does take place in the Arctic. And I like the idea of having kind of that environmental aspect to it with the environmental activists and the researchers and all of that. So I'm really curious about this one. It's actually quite a bit shorter than I expected it to be. It's not short. But it is under 300 pages. And I don't know, I just expected it to be a chunky one for some reason. So I was kind of surprised when I saw it at the store, the size of it. But yeah, wanted to have a winter cold feeling horror, and here we go. Next, I got Cicada by Tanya Pell. This is one of the Shortwave Publishing Killer VHS series, as you can see on the top there. This is number 4. So far, I do have, no, I don't have all of them. I have 2, 3, and 4. So I have 3 of the 5 published books in this little series. And it's pretty much a horror novella series where each book is written by a different author, and it's pretty much described as Goosebumps for adults, and I love it. I've loved every single one that I've read so far. So yeah, this one pretty much has to do with a character who goes to the screening of this movie about a killer cicada, and she quickly discovers she may be starring in the sequel. So I'm assuming this is pretty much like a killer cicada story. I love the bug aspects in horror, and this seems like it's gonna be a little bit campy, kind of like those old movies where it was like giant killer spiders, or I don't know, something a little bit more goofy and campy like that. So I kind of expect that from this story, so we'll see. Next is a book I decided to buy off Pango because I had some Pango bucks, and that is The Merciless by Danielle Vega. This is actually a YA possession book, and I've heard mixed things about it, if I'm being honest, but I did want to have like another possession book on my shelves because I do enjoy a possession story every now and then. I haven't read too many of them, but I feel like everyone I have read, I've never like hated a possession story. So I'm excited to check this one out. I'm curious how it's going to be, especially because it's a YA. I don't typically love YA. I have found YA that I love, but it's not my first draw. But it was really cheap on Pango, so I decided to order it, and I do really like the cover. Another Pango book I ordered is The Cipher by Kathy Koja. I don't know the premise of this at all, and I don't want to know. I don't really care. I just hear people talk about this, rave about this being the best body horror book that they've ever read. So body horror is something that I did really want for a minute there to read a lot more of. Now, in saying that, I decided I wanted to read a lot more body horror before I read all the extreme horror that I read. And after the extreme horror vlog I did, I need a break. So I don't know how long it will be until I decide to read another book that I know is going to have body horror in it. But I have this one. And then the last book in the stack, and the last book that I ordered from Pango, is The Catacombs by Jeremy Bates. I literally have no idea about this other than the fact that it's called The Catacombs. So I kind of figured it took place in the Paris catacombs. Love that setting. Love the claustrophobic. Love the catacombs. As above, so below. Love that movie. So I wanted to pick this up, and I bought this with The Merciless, so I kind of decided why not, since I was already buying from that seller anyways. So yeah, haven't heard any reviews on this, anybody talk about this. It is pretty thick, but it does have pretty big font, so it should be a relatively normal pace read, I guess. It is technically over 400 pages, but yeah, the font is pretty big and pretty spaced. So anyways, I just pretty much bought this for the promise of the atmosphere. All right, I'm gonna try to pick up the pace a little bit. I feel like I'm kind of taking a while. I haven't sat down to like film in a minute now, so this was feeling a little bit foreign to me at the moment, but I'm gonna try to go faster. So we're gonna go through my stack of special edition books that I ordered. So right on the top, this is a Twisted Retreat book and it's called Do What Godmother Says by L.S. Stratton. So this is their edition. It's still wrapped in plastic. I'm not going to unwrap it, honestly, but there's this. I knew what this premise was once upon a time. I actually talk about this in a video. I either talk about it in the upcoming releases for horror books, or I talk about it in the video I did with like 100+ book recommendations for the horror bingo card, because somebody had this on their horror bingo card. But it at least says on the back that it's a tightly woven dual timeline thriller with elements of occult horror, historical fiction, and whodunit. So there's that. Next is a book I already have 2 other copies for, okay? But I really, really love this edition. This is the Twisted Retreat edition of The Eyes Are the Best Part by Monica Kim. I really, really love the way that they did the cover. It has very reminiscent vibes to the original cover, but they still did something different with it. It came with a reversible cover. And I really love the naked cover of this one. It gives me sci-fi vibes, but I don't know, I really love this one. The end pages are pretty cool, pretty wicked. Really love the art on this side. And then the edges have eyeballs. And then my last Twisted Retreat is Winter Harvest by, I want to say I don't know what I want to say. Ioana Papadopoulou. Oh, that's probably super wrong, but that is not a name I know how to say at all. But this is so stunning. This cover just so good. The Twisted Retreat version is technically just a colorway change, but I love it. But the rest of the book is very different. The inside just has some additional artwork. Super stunning. Naked book is all types of shiny. And then the end pages are also very, very stunning. Oh, this side's the same. But I love the like mosaic style. Very, very beautiful. And this is pretty much, I don't know if it's Greek or Roman, but it's a dark reimagining of the tale of Demeter and Persephone. Oh, by Greek author. So it's probably Greek, not Roman. So it's a retelling of that. And I'm really excited for it. I really enjoy a Greek retelling or a Greek mythology story once in a while. This one was just so stunning. I think this book is probably one of the most beautiful books I've bought all year. There's just something about it. I'm just obsessed. So I can't wait to read this. And then the Evernight special edition. So this was for the October. Evernight is part of Illumicrate, and they have a quarterly horror special edition subscription, and I do have that. And the book for the October was An Academy for Liars by Alexis Henderson. I will say I don't necessarily love this edition. I'm just like, I don't know. I'm not super into this color theory, although I'm glad I have it because I don't really have any books with this color theory, this like green, very kind of like Slytherin-esque thing going on. But I am really excited for the story. I have not read from Alexis Henderson yet, so I'm really excited to check out one of her works. From what I understand of this, it's pretty much like a dark academia fantasy horror. I think there's quite a lot going on with this story. And to be honest, I don't really know what to expect, but that's kind of all I'm going in with anyway, but there you have that. And my last special edition I ordered because I got the first book from Fairy Loot, so I decided to order a copy of Ghostsmith by Nikki Powell Petro. This is the sequel to Bonesmith by the same author, obviously. And yeah, I have the Fairy Loot edition for Bonesmith, so I decided to go ahead and just order the sequel through them so they match. So there's that. Okay, I think I'll do this stack next. I'm a little scared to have everything fall over. I guess I'll just pick one up at a time. Okay, so as I said, these are all my gifted books. So the first one on the very top, I have Parasite by Myra Grant. This was gifted to me by a lovely supporter and patron, Eve. So thank you so much, Eve. I'm so excited for this. So this is pretty much like a medical thriller. I don't remember the full synopsis, honestly, but once upon a time I read the synopsis and I thought that it sounded amazing. I don't know if it's a zombie outbreak. I don't think it's fully zombie, but I don't know quite what it is, but I'm very excited to check this one out. This is so chunky, but I'm pumped because I love Myra Grant's writing. So this is just over 500 pages, as in 502 pages. And this is an ongoing series. Well, I guess I don't know if it's completed or not, but I do know there's at least a book 2. So I'm really excited for this. I think it's going to be a lot more kind of like sci-fi, medical, like science-y horror, and I'm all for it. Then I received a copy of The Very Secret Society of Irregular Witches by Sangu Mandana, I want to say. I have had my eyeball on this book for a very long time. I just hear really good things about it. It sounds like it's just a really nice, cozy story with really good themes, and I'm pretty sure there's like a lot of kind of like found family or like community style feel to it and atmosphere, and I'm just really excited to have like a cozier book on my shelves. This was a gift from Claire and Chris, who are also amazing supporters and patrons of mine, so thank you so much, Chris and Claire. And they got me a second book, and that is Last Days by Brian Everson. And I'm so excited for this. All I know about this one is it's a cult book, but I really want to read more cult stories because I really like that subgenre. I really like when cults are involved. It is on the shorter side, but it sounds like we follow an ex-detective who pretty much wants to uncover who murdered a cult leader. So there you have that one. Next on the stack is The Library at Mount Char by Scott Hawkins. This was gifted to me by Lexi, again, another amazing supporter and patron. She read this and her reaction to it has me so intrigued. I knew that this was like a very weird, very strange book, and it has a lot of mixed reviews. I really don't know what to expect with this one other than that. I know that there's like a library aspect to it, but I don't really know much more, and I just kind of want to go into the story. But after Lexi finished it, she just had no idea how to rate it. She had no idea how she felt about it. So it makes me that much more curious to check this one out. So that's why she ended up gifting this to me, because it was on my list and she really wants to see what I think about it, and I'm excited to see. Then I have Night's Edge by Liz Kieran. This was gifted by Maddie over at As Told by Maddie, and she said in her note that she absolutely loved this one, so she hopes I love it too. I've had my eyes on this book for a very long time. I'm super intrigued by it. I know it's like a vampire story, but I'm pretty sure it's not like super in your face vampire, and I feel like maybe a little bit more angsty teen and potentially sapphic. I don't really know. I don't know. I knew more about this book when it first came out, but nonetheless, I'm still really excited and really intrigued. Then I have Ghostwall by Seraphy Moss. This cover is so stinking cute. So this, I don't remember what this is about, if I'm being honest. This was also a gift. This was gifted from Chrissy, so thank you so much, Chrissy. But it says, in the north of England, far from the intrusions of cities, but not far from civilization, Sylvie and her parents are living as ancient Britons, surviving by the tools and knowledge of the Iron Age. Sylvie's father has raised her on stories of early man, taken her to witness rare artifacts, recounted time and again their rituals and beliefs, particularly their sacrifices to the bog. Now, mixing with students in an experimental anthropology class, Sylvie begins to see, hear, and imagine another kind of life, one that might include going to university, choosing her own clothes and food, speaking her mind. The ancient Britons built ghost walls to ward off enemy invaders, rude barricades of stakes topped with ancestral skulls. When the group builds one of their own, they find a spiritual connection to the past. How far will they go to summon this elusive history? So I think it's a little bit more folky, maybe a little bit more nature-driven, very kind of spiritual, it sounds like. So I know that I got intrigued by this because I saw somebody on BookTube recommend it for a particular reason, and that reason has left my memory, but it sounds like it's going to be a beautifully written story. Then I have The Sword of Kaigan by M.L. Wang. This was gifted to me along with the next book, So Thirsty by Rachel Harrison. These were both gifted to me by Carolina. Again, another amazing supporter and patron. So this one, A Sword of Kaigan, I have been wanting to read this for a while. I don't quite remember the exact details of this, but this is a fantasy book and it takes place during like a war, and I think it has a lot of themes around having a very strong female lead. This is a standalone fantasy, which I'm so excited about, and truly and sincerely have heard nothing but amazing absolute praise for this book. The back says, the Poppy War's darkness meets the last Airbender's elemental magic, which sounds so phenomenal to me. I love The Last Airbender. I haven't read The Poppy War, but it's one that's also very much on my radar, specifically again for having a very strong female lead. This sounds just fantastic despite not knowing the full synopsis. Excited for it. And then of course, So Thirsty by Rachel Harrison. This is pretty much a vampire story with two women. I don't know if it's like a sapphic thing or a friendship thing, but I love Rachel Harrison's works. She very much writes a lot more of like a cozy horror in a way. Like, it's not very horrific. Her stories are never really scary, but they have a lot of horror icons in them, vampires, werewolves, that kind of thing, but there tends to be a lot of deeper themes within it. She does explore female friendships quite a bit, so I think that this is what this one is, but we'll see when I get to it. So this stack of 5 books were actually all gifted to me from Wendy, which is another amazing supporter and friend to me. So she sent me all of these from her personal collection because she either had like duplicates or she just wasn't actually interested in them anymore, so she just sent them to me, which is so sweet. So the first one I have is The Hacienda by Isabel Cañas. I have been interested in this since it came out. This is like a gothic, I want to say like historical romance, which is a very different genre for me, but I'm excited to have a book like that available to me when I get in the mood for it. I've heard mixed things. I think people didn't really like it when they didn't realize that it was like so romance and gothic and historical feel. So I think at least knowing that, hopefully I will go in and have a better experience with it. But I think that this cover is beautiful. I love the color theory going on here. So now I can add this to my shelves. Next, kind of in the same realm, I feel like these 2 books are side by side a lot, and that is Mexican Gothic by Sylvia Moreno Garcia. I've been interested in this for a while. I believe it's a retelling of an Edgar Allan Poe story, and I know that there's a certain aspect to this book that people don't really say. Some people say and some people don't, so I won't say in case it's like a spoiler, but there's a certain element in the story that I think I'm really gonna enjoy. But we pretty much follow our main character who decides to go visit her cousin after she gets like a message from her cousin that feels, I don't know, I think that it feels very strange or something, and her cousin had recently gotten married, so she decides to go visit her cousin and kind of see what's going on, and the story kind of takes off from there, I believe. So yeah, I've read from Sylvia Moreno Garcia before, and I gotta be honest, I didn't really like that one. That was Silver Nitrate by her, but I very much want to give her a second chance, and I think that this type of story will be much more kind of in my alley, in my lane, whatever I'm trying to say. I think that I will enjoy this type of premise a lot more. And then she gifted me Shark Heart by Emily Hebeck. So this is a love story, and this is pretty much like a lit fic romance, not like romance, kind of like more of a relationship, I guess, story, where this husband and wife are together and the husband ends up turning into a shark. And I don't know, it's kind of like a thing in this book, in this world, where the men will eventually turn into an animal of some sort. And I don't really know. It's described as fantastical, original, and beautifully written. A novel about abandonment, love, and Ovidian transformation. It explores illness, caretaking, devotion, magical thinking, and loss. And it says some other stuff. So I don't know. I was really intrigued by this when it first came out, and I actually got it from the library, but I never got the chance to read it by the time it was due back, so I never ended up reading it. But now I have a copy to pick up whenever my heart desires. But I have seen some reviews on this, and I think it does kind of make some people cry. So if I'm feeling a little emo one day, maybe I'll pick this one up. And then the last 2 books she gifted me are actually romance stories. And the first one is Funny Feelings by Tara DeWitt. So I don't really know anything about this. It says Farley Jones is a loud, chaotic, and hilariously clever stand-up comedian on the way to stardom. Oh, and it says she has a thing for her hot older manager, Meyer, though he doesn't have a clue. Keeping her feelings hidden from him is agony, but Meyer has been Farley's closest and truest friend, not to mention vital to the trajectory of her career. So, yeah. Anyways, there's a romance for you. And then the next romance is Better Than the Movies by Lynn Painter. And this one looks really cute. I actually like the cover of this one. And it says, Liz Buxbaum has always known that Wes Bennett was not boyfriend material. You would think that her next door neighbor would be prime candidate for her romantic comedy fantasies, but Wes has only proven himself to be a pain in the butt ever since they were little. Okay, so it sounds like they've known each other since they were young and they're neighbors. And I'm guessing romance ensues from there. So it does on the top, it has a bunch of like Bridget Jones plus Mark Darcy, Harry and Sally, Tom Hanks and everyone, and it mentions the romantic comedies, so I think it probably has a lot of like nods to the romantic comedy like movie genre. So because it has that element to it, I think it'll make it a little bit more of an interesting read for me if I know the references that they're making, but there's that one. And then this little stack of 3 are 3 books that were gifted to me actually from Aardvark. This isn't sponsored or anything. I had no obligations or anything by them sending me these books. They just offered to send them to me, and who am I to not accept free books? So they sent me Bury Your Gaze by Chuck Tingle. I was actually really excited to receive this one. I didn't get to pick what I received. It was just kind of like a random surprise, but they decided to send me this, and I was actually really excited because honestly, I wasn't super into the idea of this book. But I have seen such good reviews that I was getting very much FOMO from it. So when they sent me this, I was really excited because I was like, oh, I can actually read it now that I have it. So I did get a copy of this. Then they sent A Dark and Drowning Tide by Allison Saft. This is kind of like a dark academia fantasy romance, I want to say. But it says Lorelei Caskell is a folklorist with a quick temper and an even quicker wit. And they're on an expedition with 6 eccentric nobles in search of a fabled spring. The magical spring promises untold power, which the king wants to harness in order to secure his reign. And then, yeah, I don't know, there's like a romance too. But I am intrigued by this. I actually did get a copy of this through NetGalley, so I got an e-arc of it, but I never actually read it. But now I have a physical copy of it, so that's easier for me. I prefer reading a physical book over a digital book, especially like a NetGalley one, because when you transfer it to your Kindle, the like formatting and stuff can get all janky, and I don't really love that. So definitely glad to at least be able to read it in this format more. And then they sent me one that I honestly had not heard of before I received it, and that was Catalina by Carla Cornejo Villavicencio, maybe. And this is kind of a shorter one, and it is like a lit fic, and it says, when Catalina is admitted to Harvard, it feels like a fulfillment of destiny. A miracle child escapes death in Latin America, moves to Queens to be raised by her undocumented grandparents, and becomes one of the chosen. It sounds a little bit like academia, but also with themes of kind of like minority groups and undocumented immigrants and stuff like that. So interesting. I'm curious to look up reviews on this one. It's not like screaming to me as a typical story I would typically pick up, but I'm definitely willing to give it a read and give it a try, especially since I have a copy of it. All right, y'all, last stack here. So on the top is a romance that I decided to buy, and that is Book Lovers by Emily Henry. I am like slowly collecting some romance books to read from. I wanted to have an Emily Henry because I hear really good things about her. In my last haul, I had an Allie Hazelwood, so I'm just like slowly collecting romance here and there to eventually, hopefully, maybe read. I don't know. I keep collecting them and I'm not reading them, but I saw this at a used bookstore and it was super cheap, so I decided to pick it up. This was a book that was on sale at Books A Million, and it's called I Fell in Love with Hope by Lan Callie. So I don't really know how to describe this one in terms of genre. Kind of pretty much just like a lit fic, but I think we follow stories of patients that are kind of like terminally ill. And it talks about these patients that embrace the joys within their reach: friendship, freedom, rebellion. It says, in the midst of pain and loss, they find community, even miracles, and together they are determined to reclaim from life what illness has taken from them. So very much kind of a definitely more sad, thematic book, I guess, where you're kind of talking about life and death and what to get out of life while we still have it. So I'm thinking another super emotional story that I will have to pick up when I'm in the mood and mindset for something that will probably make me cry. Next is another Pango book. Again, this is kind of just like a lit fic, and it's Miss Death, Mrs. Death. So all I really know about the story is it's kind of like a little bit of a fantastical lit fic where we have Death, who is personified by a woman, and yeah, I think it just kind of like follows what she does. So it's a little bit more, again, reflective on life and death, those types of themes I'm expecting in the story, and I do think that this cover is stunning. So next is a classic. I was in the mood to get a classic, so I picked up Jane Eyre by Charlotte Bronte. Never read it. And I feel like I should. I don't know. There's like certain classics that I feel like I should read. And I get very nervous with classics. I'm not a very like classic driven girl at all, but I feel like I hear a lot that this one still holds just very true and holds up the test of time or whatever. And it's pretty much, I guess, maybe about like an angsty teen. And that's all I kind of know. Next is a lit fic that honestly I don't remember the premise of, but it is The Harpy by Megan Hunter. This is one I see recommended in kind of like weird girl lit circles. It says, a confession of a woman who refuses to inhabit the world under false pretenses. Megan Hunter effortlessly compels us to feel both heartbreak and the momentary gratification of revenge. The Harpy is devastating in its evocation of the expense and sometimes fatal strain of passion, grief, and rage. Interesting. So I wonder if this is like a female rage type of story, which sounds fantastic if that's the case. And that makes me even more excited to pick this up. Oh, at the bottom it says part revenge tale, part fairy tale. The Harpy is Megan Hunter's electrifying story of marriage and its failures, of power and control, metamorphosis, and renewal. Interesting. So it sounds a bit more kind of like a feminist literary fiction. So now I'm even more excited for this. Next, I picked up a short story collection called Mystery Lights by Lena Valencina. This was a recent release, as in like released in 2024. I think it might have came out in September. Don't quote me on that. But this is a short story collection that has a lot of themes, again, around womanhood and girlhood. So I'm excited for that. It sounds like she really mixes a lot of different types of genres together, though. It says from the all too real horror of a sexual predator on a college campus to the lost sister transformed by cave-dwelling creatures. Lena Valencina's debut short story collection grapples with terrors both familiar and fantastic. It sounds stunning. Okay, so that was kind of like a mosh posh of like lit fic and classic and romance. So the rest of these books are all pretty much fantasy and fantasy romance. So up top I have Wisteria by Adeline Grace. So this is the third and maybe final book in her Belladonna series. I don't know what the series is called actually, but the first book is Belladonna. Oh, I should say, it is like a YA series, but I've really enjoyed the first two. I've given all the books so far 4 stars. Not obsessed with them, but really enjoy them and have a really good time with them. And yeah, so can't wait to get to this one. Next, I picked up Where the Dark Stands Still by A.B. Porenik. I don't really know how to say their last name. Honestly, I don't really know what this is about, but I love the cover. And it's got like, I don't know, I definitely judged this based on the cover. It says, Liska knows that magic is monstrous and its practitioners are monsters. She has done everything possible to suppress her own magic to disastrous consequences. Desperate to be free of it, Liska flees her small village and delves into dangerous demon-infested spirit wood to steal a mythical fern flower. If she picks it, she can use its one wish to banish her powers. And it says more after that, but honestly, that sounds good enough to me. I'm hoping that this is like kind of a cozy, foresty feel fantasy, and it sounds like it will be that. After that, I have Ashes of the Sun by Django Wexler. I've had my eyeballs on this for quite a while now too. Very thick, very chunky. This is, I believe, inspired by Star Wars. I think it has to do with a brother and a sister who are kind of like on opposite sides of, I guess, like, I don't know, governments fighting or something like that. You know, think of Star Wars. It says, not even the ties of blood will keep them from splitting the world in two. Surrounded by relics of a dead empire, 2 siblings, one who wields magic for the empire and the other who has vowed to bring it all down, will battle for the fate of their world in this first book of this epic new fantasy trilogy. So yeah, it's like an epic fantasy. No romance, at least that I know of, maybe like side plot romance, but I wanted to have like a chunky, strict fantasy story to start with, and pretty much the fact that it is based on Star Wars made me excited. Then we have The Tainted Cup by Robert Jackson Bennett. Love this cover. I love that they printed directly on the hardcover It's so stunning. I do really like the paperback as well, the paperback version, because I really enjoy that artist. They also did the art for the Godkiller series, which I have up there, and I think those covers are stunning. But I really liked the hardcover, so I decided to go for the hardcover copy of this. And this is pretty much like a cozier fantasy with like mystery going on. It says a Holmes and Watson style detective duo take the stage in this fantasy with a mysterious twist. And it like talks about the synopsis, but that's like all I need to know to go into a book with. So that's all I'm going to give you guys. And then these last 4 books I will talk about together because they are all part of the same series. So here we have it. The first book is Reign and Ruin by J.D. Evans. I actually read this already, and I love this book so much. This was so good. So the whole series is available on Kindle Unlimited. So I originally read the first book on KU, but I loved it so much that I immediately bought every book that is available currently. Because again, I like a physical book better, and I wanted to be able to read it and annotate it because I loved this. So this is like a fantasy series with romance involved as well, but it just has such an amazing balance of those elements. We follow, at least in the first book, we follow our main character who is pretty much the princess of this world. They have some different words and lingo that you learn throughout the book, but she's pretty much the princess who is going to take over once her father eventually actually leaves the throne. He is actually dealing with some diminishing mental capacity pretty much because of his powers. So we deal with like mage magic in this world, which I really enjoy. So it's like fantasy, but it's not like fantasy where there's a bunch of creatures and stuff. We pretty much just have humans with power, so they're all like mages. But this has such good political stuff going on, like the political scheming. The tension with the political stuff is so good, and then the tension with the romance stuff is also so good. I freaking loved this book so much, and I'm pretty sure that the following stories all follow different characters, but all within the same world and within the same kind of political dilemma and turmoil that's going on at the same time. So I cannot wait to continue on with the series. It is ongoing. I think that there's supposed to be 6 books, but do not quote me. She is still writing it. And it makes me a little bit sad that it's not finished yet, because I hate starting series that aren't finished because I am terrified of them just never being completed, especially if it's a series I'm loving. I'm terrified of like a Game of Thrones scenario where it never gets finished. There is technically a 5th book that is a novella that goes somewhere within these books that I did not purchase yet. It might go in the beginning. It might be like a prequel. I'm not totally sure. But there is currently 5 published books and novellas within the series. Don't know how many there are gonna be, but yeah. Anyways, bought this because I loved the first one so much. So that is everything. That is all of the books that I have accumulated over the last few months. I do plan on doing a full physical TBR video. My entire physical TBR, I'm pretty much doing it so I can audit myself and know how many physical books I'm starting with going into 2025. So then for 2025, I'm very much only going to be reading from my physical TBR. So you can look forward to that video whenever I can get that filmed and up. I have a feeling that filming that is going to take forever, so we'll see when that happens, but it will happen by the end of the year. If you've read any of the books that I talked about in this video, let me know what you thought of them in the comments down below. If you don't have anything else to say but want to let me know that you were here, leave me a fern emoji in the comments down below, like the leaves for The Tainted Cup, just because this book was sitting right in front of me. As always, thank you so much for spending some of your time with me while I sit down and talk about books. If you haven't yet, please give the video a like, subscribe for future content, turn on the bell notification, all the fun YouTube things that help your girl out, and I will catch you guys in the next video. Bye!